So the UK will take back full competence for its trade and investment agreements when we leave. There are a few question marks about what kind of arrangements we get in terms of kind of WTO or others, but in essence we're going to get much more influence over how our trading relations with the rest of the world are shaped. The EU offered developing countries some preferential arrangements that allowed them to export at either low or reduced tariffs into the EU. We think the UK should adopt those immediately, but then there's also scope to improve on them quite significantly. For example, a big priority for many developing countries is promoting and developing their regional markets, which helps them to diversify their export destinations, but also allows them to be sheltered from some of the global shocks that we've seen, particularly since the financial crisis. So we think the UK can do more on things like regional integration, can do more to support groupings of countries to be able to participate in the same deals. The UK has already put quite a lot of investment into things like infrastructure, cross-border customs procedures that will help regional trade, but we think that needs to be focused much more on ensuring that the poorest traders, the poorest workers can benefit. So TTIP is in a difficult moment. I think, at the moment it's being described as the EU Trade Commissioner as being on ice. I think that has a lot to do with the election cycles, so the US elections obviously, but also French and German elections, and I think there's just a natural pause to some extent in that. Beyond that, there are some real questions about how far will Donald Trump go in terms of his rhetoric about there being no more trade deals. He's sticking with the idea that they'll pull out of the Trans-Pacific Partnership. It looks like he'll stick with commitments to pull out of TTIP. I'm not sure to what extent that reflects kind of people who are behind him, the rest of the Republican Party, business interests in the US who are heavily involved and lobbying for TTIP. So I think we have to wait and see. We may see TTIP reshaped into something slightly different. I don't think it's going to go away, and I think once the German and French elections are over, we'll start to see a revival, possibly of some of the aspects of TTIP that they think are easier to get through. So things like automotives, pharmaceuticals and finance were always big priorities for the EU, and I think they will try and move forward on those. They might do it kind of outside of the much bigger agreement that was really proving quite problematic. Obviously, I think if they need to, I think they need to rethink their whole approach to trade. So I think TTIP was not the right model, but some of the more controversial things like ISDS, the needs for really strong and enforceable kind of labour clauses and trade deals that really support aims in terms of labour rights, human rights and climate agreements. Those are the kind of things that we would like to see coming out. I suspect that we won't quite get there. And so it's really a question of kind of watch this space, but I don't think we should assume that TTIP's completely gone away.